Nation. Man, welcome to Manly Monday Live. It's amazing to see all you guys here tonight, and we are glad that you are here to hang out with us. Guys, I have an incredible guest for you tonight, and I am so excited about what's going on. Shout out in the comments. Let us know where you are coming from, where you're joining us from. I am so excited, guys. My guest tonight is just extraordinary, and we're going to dig into some really major issues. So bring your questions. If you haven't dug into the link in the description, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, it doesn't matter. There's a link in the description of the show, guys. If you want to come on and ask your questions live, possibly during the show on air, guys, we'd love to have you on. I've got Dr. Christian Heim tonight. Tonight, you are in for such a treat with Dr. Heim, as he is an award-winning psychiatrist, multiple-time author, guys, and he is here to help answer your questions about men's mental health. So get those questions ready. If you don't want to come on live, if you got questions, you can put a QQ in front of your question in the comments, in the chat. That helps incredibly. If you are having difficulty showing up in the chat, guys, if you want to show up as more than just a letter, there is an acknowledgement at the top of the Facebook chat, and I think on YouTube, that allows StreamYard to see your profile picture and stuff like that. And so if you're not seeing something like this on with your personal icon, that may be why. It doesn't really matter. We can have you on whether you have that here or not, but if you want the personalization, that's how you do it. So get ready with your questions. Get ready. And guys, tell your friends. Text them right now. I want you to pull out your phones and start texting people right now and share this live stream with them, guys. It is such an important topic. Men's mental health is a crisis that is growing exponentially right now. There is so much going on in the world that is just impacting all of us in a huge way. And so we want to help take care of some of those questions tonight. And guys, with that said, check out our new intro. Let's get into it. Dr. Heim, thank you for taking the time. It is tomorrow where you're at, right?
Look, I love living in the future, Brent. That way I get to see what's happening, but it's wonderful to be on your show tonight.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you were still working just a couple minutes before we started, so I'm grateful that you're taking the time, and I'm looking forward to our conversation tonight. Men's mental health is such a critical topic right now. There's so much going on in the world that mental health in general is a huge concern. And so tonight, I appreciate that you're taking the time to answer questions for us.
Look, as I said, Brent, I'm pleased to be here, and you're quite right. Mental health it's a bit of a crisis at the moment for all of us, but for men in particular, there are some particular problems there, and we hope that we can get into some of those things and to be able to answer what people want to hear about tonight.
Now, guys, I told you this is mainly a Q&A show. We're going to do a lot of questions and answers tonight, and I've got some questions queued up and ready to get us started. So as you guys have questions, Dave, hey, thanks for jumping on the show, brother. I see Dave, I see Tim, I see Oliver, I see Jared. We are building a good group, guys, and I know there's some other people watching right now. My mom is watching, so hi, Mom. Hi, my daughters. My daughters are watching with my mother, and I know there are more people watching who aren't at a position where they can log in. I know last week we had some problems with my mother-in-law watching on a tablet, and she couldn't quite log in. So if you guys are in the chat, please participate. The more you participate, the more fun this is. Jared's telling us, welcome, Dr. Heim. Jared's one of my regulars. So
nice to see you, Jared.
This is what we're going to do, guys. I punched it up a notch. So tell me what you guys think of this. We have questions right here. We're going to spin the wheel to start this off. And the first question of the night, the first question we're going to cover is how to deal with anger in a healthy way. Dr. Heim, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. That's a good question to start off with, Brent, because it is a particular problem for males, because males producing 20 times the testosterone that a female body produces tends to have a problem with anger. So anger actually is a normal emotion, and it tells us that there is something unjust happening to us right at this time, or it's like there's a wrong and we want to be able to right it. So the way to deal with anger is, if you're in a situation that has caused you a lot of anger, the aim is to link your head with your heart, link your thoughts with your emotion, link your frontal lobe, if you like, to your limbic system. And the way that we do that is to give yourself a bit of time. So if you've just been angered, you've been triggered, it's a good idea just to take one deep breath. It might be a good idea to take 2 deep breaths or 3 deep breaths, so that you give yourself a bit of time to say, Christian, you're angry, and you're angry. Be careful what you say or what you do next. And what I like telling people is that there's a traffic light technique: red, yellow, and green. When you see red, so in other words, when you get angry, stop what you're doing, stop everything that you're saying, go to yellow, which is think. Think, Christian, what's the right thing for you to do in this situation? What's the right thing for you to say? Have a plan, and only when you know that it's safe, go to green, which is then go. Do what you believe is the right thing to do. Now, that's actually quite difficult to do, and some of us need to have things prepared beforehand, so that if we get in a really angry situation, we've got a plan that says, remember, Christian, this is where you go for a 1 kilometer run in the opposite direction. Or this is where you walk backwards and say, hey, I just need a bit of time to myself. Or this is a time when you say, I'm just going to have a toilet break right now. Or this is when you say, I'm just going to take a few deep breaths and see what the right thing to do is in that situation. So they're just a couple of techniques, Brent, that I can give people that will help every male in a situation where they've been triggered and they're feeling really angry.
That is a great answer, sir. I appreciate that. I remember when we talked previously, we talked a little bit about that. And I am a person who definitely has been known to have a temper from time to time. I'm a little
Just
grumpy on some. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when I was younger. I know particularly in my younger years, junior high and the beginning of high school, I had a real temperament. It was just hard to deal with. I got angry for no reason. And man, anger is such a crucial thing to deal with. And guys,
Yes.
be sure and ask those questions as they come in. We already have one guest lined up later tonight to join us on the show live to ask a question. And I would love to see more of you guys on here. I just love interacting with you guys. Now, Dr. Heim, if you're ready to keep going, we'll jump into the next question.
Let's go.
Let's see what the magic wheel has for us. Here we go. The next question is, why do men suffer from alcohol abuse more commonly than women? I was doing research for the show and digging up facts and digging up questions, and I found that there seems to be a disproportionate amount of men who become alcoholics,
Yeah.
as opposed to women.
Yeah.
So that's something you can help us with.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow on from anger, because that's actually the two are connected. Now, firstly, however, let me just say that with alcohol, there is a genetic predisposition to not being able to handle alcohol for a lot of people, and people who know that about themselves. And we had a famous football coach here who knew that if he started to drink alcohol, he would have a dreadful life. And football in Australia is something where alcohol is part of the culture. So he actually had 4 footballers pin him down and a 5th pour some alcohol into his mouth, but it wouldn't pass his lips, because he knew that that could be the end of his career. So if you know that you have a genetic predisposition to having problems with alcohol, it really is best not to take it at all. But let me get back to anger, because anger is an emotion that none of us are comfortable with. So what we do is we go, oh, I feel angry. I don't want to feel this. What can numb down my feelings? Alcohol. Alcohol can do that. So while you're drinking the alcohol, it's like you don't feel the anger for a while. But as you know, what actually happens is alcohol takes away the control that you had over the anger, which is why there are more fist fights on a Friday and a Saturday night, because they're fueled by anger and alcohol. It's actually a really bad combination. So again, there are things about males, the increase in testosterone, that means that anger, it's not that females do not experience anger. Guys, you know that they do, but in the anger state, and this is going to be a strange thing to say, there's nothing wrong with being angry. It's what you do while you're angry that makes the difference. So if you can think about your anger and choose your next words, rather than drink alcohol to try to forget about it or to lash out of control, that's the better choice. But yeah, alcohol, we like it because it's a social lubricant. It takes away some tensions, but keep it down, keep it under control. And more than anything, know your relationship with alcohol. Know what your limit is and know what's good for you.
Now, I want to stop for a minute and appreciate something you said and dig into this, because I think as men, often we're told that being angry is not okay, that it's not okay to be mad, that that's not an emotion that we're allowed to deal with.
Yeah.
Because we're dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Because we're bigger or stronger.
Yes.
And I think that's something really important that you brought up.
Yeah.
Men experience anger, and that's natural.
Anger is a very natural emotion. In fact, any emotion that you experience is actually natural, because emotions are more tied to the body than our thoughts. So it's what you do with that anger that becomes important. So in other words, anger, if you know that you're angry, there's a good side of that, because you would want to be able to turn the same energy of anger into determination to get something done. And anger is what gets us to do things that we believe is right. It's actually anger that drives us to get it done. So determination and anger are actually very, very linked. So it's not so much the anger, but what we do with it that becomes quite important, Brent.
Thank you for going into detail on that and clarifying that a little. Oliver shared with know your limits. I thought I had that on there. Know your limits, self-awareness. I think that's very important, especially your point about, know your limit on alcohol. I enjoy bourbon. I'm a bourbon drinker. I love bourbon, but I love it within my limits of loving it. I'm almost 42. I'm getting ready to turn 42 this month, or in December, right? That's next month. Still, I'm getting ready to turn 42, and I survived a lot of alcohol in my 20s. Excessive amounts of alcohol for sure.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't enjoy that. I don't want to do it anymore, but I enjoy a drink. And so Oliver is right. Knowing your limits is really important. And I appreciate that we talked on that. Guys, you should know here at the Fallible Man, we absolutely support being wise and intentional with your drinking. If you want to have a drink, have a drink. Do not drink and drive. Do not drink excessively. Do not put others in harm's way with your carelessness. Okay, drink in a safe space, drink where you're taken care of and where you're not going to put other people in danger. And guys, for goodness sake, don't drink alone. It's a bad idea, especially with how prone men are to depression. That's something that we'll get into later in the show. That's another question that's coming up. But men tend to be prone to depression, and alcohol increases that. So please, please, please be responsible, be intelligent with your drinking. I know that's a buzzkill commercial, but guys, let's be realistic. I love you guys. I want you to be back week after week. I want to spend this time with you. So please be responsible in your choices to drink.
Okay, and Brent, I'm just going to add a little bit to that, because there's actually a reason why people think by the time they get in their late 20s, they got to give up that alcohol stuff, right? And the reason is this. Guys, we have strong emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we've got larger bodies and frames to actually be more effective. But these emotions can really get on top of us. And it's only by the age of about 25 that the frontal lobe, the thinking part of the brain, really develops. So that means that it's really difficult before you're about 25 to get on top of your emotions. But after you're about 25, your frontal lobe has the capacity to say, hey, I can start handling this. So in your late 20s and into your 30s, you actually have the capacity to handle your emotions by thinking about them. So after you're about 25, alcohol consumption should come down so that you can enjoy alcohol and you can deal with your emotions by thinking about them. And it actually gets pretty good. It feels good when you know that you can go, okay, what's going on in here? What's going on? Bit of anger, bit of jealousy, and a bit of resentment all combined. That's what I'm going through at the moment. To be able to think those sort of thoughts are helpful to get on top of our emotions.
Now, guys, it's cool. I'm seeing some conversation starting in the chat. That's also always exciting to see. But guys, hey, I like to give stuff away. So coming up later tonight, just for you guys, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy somebody a copy of Dr. Heim's newest book, The 7 Love Types. But all you got to do is enter hashtag book to be entered for that drawing. Later in the show, I'm going to buy you the audiobook version because here at The Fallible Man, I am super into audiobooks. I love audiobooks. I love that your book is published that way. But I'm going to give the winner an option, okay? The 7 Types of Love is Dr. Heim's newest book. However, Dr. Heim did another book that is incredible on men's mental health specifically. So you will have the option to either have his book, The 7 Love Types, or his book on men's mental health. Courtesy of me, guys, I want you to have it. So hashtag book in the comments if you want to be entered in that drawing later in tonight's show. Now, Dr. Heim, I see we already have our first question in the chat, and I want to go to that first from Twisted Designer, my friend Tim and coworker. Tim, let's go right into your question right now. Dr. Christian Heim, what got you into this field?
Okay, that's a really interesting question because I've had a strange journey to get me into becoming psychiatrist. Because before I even became a doctor, I was actually a musician. I was a rock musician and a classical musician. And I suppose the thing is that I liked feelings. I liked working with feelings because music, as all of us know, really is a language of the emotions. But music was not my first love. I did want to get out there and help people, so I became a doctor. And it was when I was doing my psychiatry term that I realized that I had a heart for people that are having problems with emotions. Because in a sense, a psychiatrist is a doctor of the emotions. If you're a kidney doctor, you work on something that you can see. If you're a lung doctor, you can work on something that you see. If you're a bone doctor, you can repair those things. But as a psychiatrist, we work with something abstract called the mind. And the way that the mind is expressed is through thoughts, emotions, and our behaviors. And the one thing that I really love about the work that I do is every person that I get to meet is totally unique. I have never seen two people that are same in the way that they express their emotions, or if they have a certain disorder, that disorder is unique to that person because that person is unique. So we've got to find a unique solution for that particular person. But thanks so much for that question. And it's basically emotions and music that got me into this field. So I hope that kind of covers it, Brent.
Dr. Heim, I think that was an impressive answer. I actually kind of wish you had your piano with you. I was telling a friend of mine about the upcoming interview and about your YouTube channel, which, guys, Dr. Heim has a YouTube channel where he gets on, and you guys need to subscribe to that. I don't have it in the comment section. I apologize for that. But if you look for him on YouTube, he's fairly easy to find. Dr. Heim plays the piano as he discusses emotions and the way your brain works and the way it affects you. You did an incredible piece on conflict resolution using the theme from The Hobbit on your piano.
Okay. Okay.
I absolutely loved that video. I actually have shared it with multiple friends now. So you guys be sure and check out Dr. Heim's YouTube channel. It's a growing channel like my own, and he has incredible content. My mind was blown. Okay. I grew up a preacher's kid. My dad did a lot of marital counseling, and applying music to it just unlocked something that I never like quite grasped with conflict resolution in an incredible way. So, guys, check that out. That is an incredible thing. Now, guys, we told you to put in hashtag book. I want you guys to do something even crazier. Okay. Pull out your phones right now because we are just getting in this conversation. We still have lots of time. I want you guys to pull out your cell phone and text somebody you know who would benefit from this conversation. Somebody who has questions, somebody you know in your life who is struggling with maybe depression or anxiety at this time right now. We have gone through an incredible couple of years, guys, and it doesn't show any signs of letting up. So this is an incredible opportunity for you and people you care about to touch base and to connect with someone who can actually give you a positive direction. We may not answer all your questions tonight, but we can at least get you started in a very positive direction. So text somebody you know, let them know right now, guys. I had Dr. Heim full screen. It's because I was posting on Instagram about the show. So, guys, be sure and do that. And let's dig into it. I'm seeing some nice conversation going. Oh, this is my friend Oliver. Oliver is going to be joining us later in the show for a live question that he wanted to address with you. And he says, we need a song. I don't know if you're close to your piano, so I don't know if that's possible or not. But that is something that is.
I'm in a big empty here, Brent. Okay. At the moment, there's only me and a couple of big lights and an old Christmas tree. So,
that's about it. I see that we've got the link for Dr. Heim's channel in the description, in the chat. So wherever you are, guys, you can click on that link. It's on the YouTube chat and the Facebook chat to get directly to his channel. And Dr. Heim, let's spin that wheel again.
Let's do it.
The question is, do men deal with eating disorders as well? We hear talked about with women on a regular basis. It's not something you hear talked about with men. What do you think?
It's not talked about much, Brent, but the short answer is yes. Men deal with eating disorders. Traditionally, things like anorexia and bulimia nervosa, they're disorders that come about as a result of an interplay between genetic factors and factors in the environment. And the thing about the environment, so in other words, the society that we live in, is women in particular, over the decades, have felt the need to be thin. There's a culture of thinness where the thinner you are, the more acceptable that you are. And that, in the mind of some people, can lead to anorexia and bulimia. Anorexia is a terrible, terrible disease because it carries a high mortality rate. It's absolutely awful. And bulimia is basically where people make themselves throw up after eating a lot. And it's been called a reasonable but foolish way to keep your weight off. Now, the thing is about our society is that these pressures that women have been under for decades have now transferred to men. Men feel the need to be thin, to have buff bodies, and there is a pressure on all of our appearances. And so we're actually putting in more time in how we look than we used to. So what happens there is the same thing enters the male psyche. Now, anorexia rates and bulimia rates are still far more prevalent in females. But one area in which male and female eating disorders is actually almost the same is overeating. And I'm going to tie this into alcohol and anger again, because eating makes us feel good. It is one of the greatest pleasures that we have here on earth, right? Be it potato chips, ice cream, or your favorite chicken and pasta, right? The taste sensation of eating makes you feel good to be alive. And so all of us can use eating to make us feel good, which is what we call comfort eating. And this is something that is an eating disorder. And it's very, very difficult because we have a marketing system that encourages us not only to feel good, but also to eat, because a marketing psychologists have found ways of isolating what it is in foods that we like to taste. And so foods are now marketed with the taste rather than their nutrition as the primary thing. And we're all vulnerable to this, all right? All of us could actually overeat, and all of us need to be careful. So just to get on top of eating disorders, because it's something that a lot of people struggle with, I want to introduce you to an important concept, and that is to link any pleasure that you have to a purpose. So the pleasure of eating is linked to the purpose of nutrition. And you're allowed to eat your food, you're allowed to enjoy your food, but keep the pleasure linked to that purpose. And once you're going beyond that purpose, so in other words, you're eating not only for nutrition, but just to feel good, that's the part that you've got to cut out, all right? And later on in the show, we may talk more about linking pleasure and purpose, because if we're able to use that as a general rule of how far to go with certain indulgences, then we won't move into things like addictions. So thank you for that question about, do men deal with eating disorders too? Because they do, but the prevalence is still greater in females.
It is. And in my research for the show, I was looking at specifically that, right? As you know, we've worked together before on the podcast. And guys, if you missed that podcast episode, you need to go back to the Fallible Man podcast, catch the episode with Dr. Christian Heim. We had an incredible conversation then, and I'm enjoying being able to continue that now. Looking for it, Dr. Heim, I found that was the prevalent eating disorder for men was emotionally overeating.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to bulimia. I know I find bulimia just, oh.
It makes you want to throw up, doesn't it, Brent?
Yeah. Wow, that's just horrific. I had several female friends in like junior high and high school who struggled with anorexia and bulimia and eating disorders because of societally acceptable, beautiful, right?
Yeah.
But it was something I never thought men actually dealt with. That's not something I associated. So that is incredible. Now, let's keep going, guys. Let your friends know. We are having some solid gold here, guys. Men's mental health is a taboo subject, and I don't understand why, other than men are just taught to suppress our feelings. We're taught to keep them inside and not allow them out.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for the idea of Stoicism, where you control your feelings, but you still have to deal with those emotions. You still have to understand them and find a healthy way to deal with them.
Yeah.
You can absolutely control your emotions without them controlling you, but you still have to take steps to deal with those emotions. So this is some solid gold, guys. Let's go back to the wheel. I love it. Ooh, this one's a really important one, I think, right now, Dr. Heim. What are common signs of depression in men? Because as I was researching the show a little bit, it's my vague understanding from the research I did that they're not exactly the same as signs of depression you see in women. Is that so? Can you enlighten us?
Okay, so formally, as far as the psychiatric diagnostic criteria are concerned, we don't differentiate between men and women, right? We look for people who have been down, for people who are not enjoying life, and there are all these other symptoms that come along with that. But being down actually does something different to the male body than to the female body. And again, we come down to biological differences. And the main biological difference is that a male body produces 20 times the amount of testosterone to a female body. So what does testosterone do? Testosterone gives us a faster metabolism, stronger bones and muscles, a higher sex drive, and a higher propensity to express our anger aggressively. So the signs of depression in men are then kind of testosterone driven. Rather than being down and quiet, a male in particular may be very irritable and very aggressive. So if you're finding yourself getting much more angry than you normally do, that we look for as a sign of depression, particularly in men. The other thing that testosterone does is it fuels our sex drive. And our sex drive is something that makes us feel good. But again, like the anger energy, it's something that needs to be controlled. But in men, if you find that your old fellow just isn't saying good morning to you the way that he used to, that could be a sign of depression in men, right? That it's just not happening as easy as it used to. And again, it's fueled by by testosterone, but it becomes a sign of depression. So they're the two main things, Brent, that are different about depression in males rather than females. A diminished sex drive, although that happens in females as well, and being aggressive or irritable or very angry. And again, that can happen in females, but it does happen in men. Now, I've got to talk about one other thing that happens in males that we don't like to talk about, but this is what happens. A man will shut down completely, not talk about his emotions, not talk to friends, not talk to anybody, and just withdraw into himself. And that, to me, as a psychiatrist, is a very worrying sign. And if you see that sign in somebody else, in a friend who's just saying no to any social dues, saying no to everything, and is spending a lot more time just by themselves, that's the time to sort of get in contact with them and sort of go, hey, are you doing okay? Do we need to go and sort something out? Are you feeling down? Do you need to see a doctor? Do you need me to come with you? Because I'll do that. Because you know what? I care for you. And right there is another difference between males and females. You see, to say I care for you is a more feminine thing to say, whereas to say I'll protect you is a more masculine thing to say. But males have some female in them and females have some male in them. And that's actually a healthy sign.
I appreciate you pointing out that last part about men shutting down, because I've experienced that with men I know where they just check out. Like, it's like, okay, you try and get anything out of them and they're just totally shut down and not responding to anything. And that's just incredibly worrisome. We like to call that, loner syndrome, right? People just like, oh, he's a loner. He does. Well, maybe he's got a whole lot to say and just nothing's getting through right now.
Yeah.
Now, guys, as I said, be sure and put #book if you want to be entered for a chance to win one of Dr. Heim's books. I will buy you the audiobook because I love audiobooks here. And share this up. I've got Oliver Marcel is getting ready to come on, but in the meantime, I want to have Twister Designer, my friend Tim. He's got another question for you, sir. Could you suggest some healthy coping exercises for a teen dealing with depression and those around them?
Okay, so we're talking about teen depression here. And again, one of the things about psychiatry, which I said that I loved, is that each person is different. So the first thing about a teen that is dealing with depression is you do want to make sure that they're safe, okay? The idea of harming yourself is something that we wish to avoid. So the question is always, does this person need to see somebody professionally? And that's the first thing that needs to be done. But coping exercises for a teen dealing with depression, first of all, exercise itself, actual activity. We have lots of studies that link exercise with preventing depression. So if you can get the body moving, if you can get the body doing things, if you can get that competitive spirit out there in the form of baseball, soccer, football, jogging, whatever, it actually works really well. Now, one of the problems in our society is screen technology, because screen technology, as wonderful as it is, because I'm beaming to you from Australia, it has a few drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks is that we spend a lot of our downtime in front of a screen rather than in the backyard playing with some friends. So basically anything that is an activity. The other thing is things that motivate the person to get better. To ask a teen, what are you good at? And if it's playing a musical instrument, if it's playing a sport, or being able to learn certain things or do certain things, to do more of that, because the motivation to become good at something and to become better at something feels really good. And so that's something that I would do. I would sort of say, look, let's just do more of what works for you. Let's do more of what feels good for you without it having to be things like alcohol or overeating. So I hope that's helpful, Brent, but each person is different. And so there are different coping mechanisms for each person.
Well, and I like the idea of, presenting other options, right?
Yeah.
As you said, presenting other healthier options going forward. And Tim, I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question for you, sir. Guys, if you're watching this on the replay, okay, if you're joining us from the on the replay, see if I can get tongue twisted here. Be sure and comment down in the comment section, guys. I will forward any questions from the comments to Dr. Heim. I don't know that he has time to answer them all, but I will at least let him know that what you guys are asking and questions like that. And we love you guys checking out in the replay. Now,
Brent, I want to add one more thing for Tim.
Please go for it.
Okay, because a teenager is often going through the time of life when you go, where do I fit in this crazy thing called society? So to find that meaning for that particular teenager, all right, to say this is what means something in this person's life, and to always say, particularly if it's your child, I believe in you. What gives my life meaning is you. I'm always going to be here for you, all right? Whatever we go through, I'm here as well. Love gives the most meaning in life, and to be able to make that connection gives a teenager hope that it even doesn't matter if you fail out there, because we don't all have to be successful. It's the love that's together with a family that's the most successful thing that any of us can experience.
And for all of you guys who are just coming on, I've been reminiscing this. If you missed the scrolling banner at the bottom of the screen, we are having a conversation with award-winning psychiatrist Dr. Christian Heim, specifically on men's mental health. But you know how it goes on my show. If we creep into all over mental health, that's perfectly okay. We just want to help people through difficult times right now, and we're all dealing with difficult times. We all know that there's a lot of frustration and anxiety, a lot of stress right now in the world. And so we're going to keep going, but let us know where you're joining from. Join the conversation in the chat, guys. Now, check it out. We have time for a live question. Dr. Heim, tonight, our live question so far is from Oliver Marcel. And Oliver, welcome to Manly Monday Live. Again, Oliver and I have worked together on relationships. Him and his wife, Denise, run an outstanding YouTube channel and outreach and coaching program on marriage and relationships. Oliver, what is your question for Dr. Heim?
Man, first of all, Brent, thank you for having me. This is awesome. Awesome conversation, Dr. Heim. Man, let me just say what you talked about as it relates to the connection between anger and determination.
Yeah.
That was mind blowing. It answered some questions immediately for me. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, that makes sense. That's why. I love it, man. Thank you so much for that enlightenment. That was gold. Thank you.
You're welcome, Oliver.
So my question is this. We're talking about men's mental health, and for such a long time, thankfully it's making a shift now, but for such a long time, it was such a taboo word, mental health. It had such negative connotation, especially for me as an African-American male in the Black community, African-American community. It's just like, I don't think I ever remember hearing a conversation in my home about therapy, about counseling, unless it was attached to, some crazy off the wall person, babbling and talking about to themselves. So how do you encourage someone, or convince, if you will, a man to overcome that and ask for help and do it in such a way that they don't feel alienated or attacked or embarrassed?
Yeah, Oliver, thanks for the question. That's a really good question, because in a sense, that's what we're going through in this generation of males. Earlier, Brent talked about Stoicism, and Stoicism is basically where you're feeling all these emotions, but you're not going to share them. You're going to keep them in. And you know what? Stoicism has its place, particularly when there's a job that needs to be done, particularly when it's got something to do with, let's say, war. All right. So if we go into the battlefield of World War II or the Vietnam War, it's not the time to sort of say, you know what, I'm just not feeling too good about this. I'll sit this one out. Because that's when, as a man, you've got a job to do. But you see, we're in a different society now, whereas the 20th century was just horrible as far as war was concerned. What happened is we had so much war that Stoicism became a very strong value. One thing that we needed to get through is Stoicism. Well, since the Vietnam War of the 60s, we've had relative peace. I understand that a lot of people have gone to Afghanistan, and that's been a disaster in itself. But as far as the USA is concerned and developed nations, we've had peace. And Stoicism does not work well in peace. In fact, Stoicism gets in the way of peace, because in peacetime, strangely enough, it's hard to find meaning. People, when they're on the battlefield, know that their life is full of meaning. Whereas in peacetime, it's sort of like, well, what the hell am I alive for? What am I really going to do? And that question actually has more to do with love and relationships and the kind of work that you're doing, Oliver, right? That's wonderful peacetime activity. So Stoicism, which is what a lot of us grew up with from our fathers and our grandfathers, is actually not the way to go anymore. But all of society still values Stoicism, which is why mental health became a bit of a taboo subject. So now when it's time to sort of like share some emotions, because we need that to keep some males alive, it becomes a bit more difficult. So how do you get over that? Well, being a caring person. Hey, I care for you, brother. I care for you, friend. I'm here because I'm another human being, and you're here because you're a human being, and we've got to get through this. And I know it sounds strange, but we've got to get through peacetime just like we get through a war, where during a war, men will be there to help each other. Women are there to help each other. But at peacetime, we think we're doing okay. But emotionally, we're not. We still got to be there to help each other and just do a little bit of listening and encouraging. So it's always listening and encouraging. So I hope that helps, Oliver. But yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, I love it. Listening and encouraging. That's awesome.
Listening and encouraging, right? And also normalizing, hey, I've been where you are,
Mm-hmm.
because we actually all have, right? It's just that we tend not to share some of the darker sides of our nature. But we actually all have been in some pretty dark places. So we're actually together in that as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doc. I'll definitely be following you, subscribing to your channel as well. And good stuff,
Thank
man.
you very
Awesome.
much, Oliver.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. And yeah, keep those relationships together, because that's
Yes,
one of
sir.
the most protective factors for our mental health, is those relationships. We all need them. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Indeed. Much appreciated.
Now, before we go any farther on this, we're going to get into it. So if you want Dr. Heim's book, and you can choose to either have his 7 Love Types book or his book on men's mental health, and I apologize for not having a picture of that on here, I want you to put #book in the comment section, because you know what? We're going to do more of the one drawing tonight. And so we're going to do the first drawing in just a second, guys, right after this. All right, guys, now it is time to put that #book in. Someone is going to get a great audiobook. Now, let me tell you a secret. This is something I didn't know for a while. You don't actually have to have an Audible account to listen to an audio book. You don't have to actually pay for Audible, Okay. I don't have a Audible account on Amazon. I have the app on my phone. It's free, and I can add it to my book, to my app, and listen to it on Audible without having to have a Audible subscription. So don't let that get in your way. If you are interested, #book. I see Sarah has got the giveaway tool up. So Sarah, if you want to set us up with #book, go on once. Hey, congratulations, Oliver. You are the winner, and I will be picking you up that copy, brother. You know how to reach me, so you can pick up that copy. Just text me whichever one you want, and I will be buying you that book. Congratulations on that. And that is the first of our giveaways tonight. Later in the show, we have a new item on the Fallible Man. Let's see if I can get it up here. Oh, it's upside down or backwards. So you think I planned this better. These are our new mouse pads, and you will get a Manly Monday mouse pad if you want to optimize your desk, whether it's at work or home. Enter #mouse. As I knock over everything behind me. Enter #mouse pad. Thank you, Sarah, for correcting me. #mouse pad in the chat. If you would like to win that mouse pad a little later in the show, congratulations again to Oliver. And thanks for coming on with that question. And guys, it is not too late. If you want to come on live on air and talk to Dr. Heim and ask your question, you can present it that way. Also, you can put the QQ around your question in the comments, as you can see scrolling under the screen right now. And we'll pick up your question that way as we go. Now, Tim shared with us that was interesting, carrying the idea of Stoicism and how it's changed through generations and era. Tim, if you missed the podcast with Dr. Heim, man, did you miss out, because he shared his take on how the role of men has changed and how that's affected us mentally and emotionally. I work with men every day. That is what I do here at the Fallible Man. And my mind was blown, Dr. Heim. It was such a thorough and comprehensive look at the way men have changed and where that started. Guys, you need to go back and check out that podcast. If you've missed it, it's available on audio. It's available on video on YouTube. Katie, hey, good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm so glad you're here. And Dr. Heim, are you ready to go to the next question?
Yeah, I'd love to go to the next question.
All right, let's dig into it. Spin that wheel. Now, this is an interesting option. I was introduced to this idea just recently. I was talking to a porn addiction counselor that will be featured on my podcast next season, sometime in February. It was an incredible conversation, and he introduced me to this idea of substance addiction versus process addiction. And this is something I never heard of before. Is that something you can share with us?
Yeah. Basically, they're both addictions. So the example of a substance addiction is being addicted to alcohol, methamphetamines, cocaine, whereas a process addiction is a behavior, a porn addiction, gambling addiction, or let's take shopping addiction. And the thing about the substance addictions is some of those substances can be illegal, all right? Whereas most all of the process addictions are all not only legal, but some are even socially sanctioned and liked. Like, who's going to ban shopping? Nobody's going to ban shopping, but yet there are some people who can get addicted to that sort of stuff, okay? So the question is, how do they work? And the thing is that they both work the same in the brain. So whereas, let's say, amphetamines can release a whole lot of dopamine and serotonin and noradrenaline, norepinephrine in the brain, the same chemicals are released by, let's say, gambling. the dopamine and the serotonin and all of those feel-good chemicals are the same. They are released in an addiction by spinning a wheel or playing cards or watching porn, just as if you were injecting a substance into your body that then goes to the brain and hits receptors that then releases all of these chemicals in your brain. So the end effect is the same. And there was a time that people thought, you know what, you can't really get addicted to things like gambling or pornography or shopping. It's just a behavior, right? You've just got to bring back the behavior. But what we have found, and this is in the last 20 years when neuroscience has really been able to give us a whole lot more information, is that exposure to that behavior does exactly the same thing as exposure to the substance. It releases all of those chemicals in the brain that keeps us craving for more. And that's what addiction actually is. So that's basically the difference between a substance and a process addiction. And I have a technique which I share for people who are trying to get on top of their addictions, whatever that happens to be. And that is try to delay gratification. And because we live in a society that wants you to feel good right now, if you can delay feeling good by sort of saying, well, no, if I can just hold on to some of that energy and wait until tomorrow. So in other words, rather than spending your money on chocolate now, if you can save some of your money and buy something a bit more substantial in the future, then you will be doing the opposite of what addiction is. Addiction is the ultimate instant gratification. So the more that we get used to gratifying our desires instantly, the more we're making ourselves vulnerable to addiction. So anybody who has set out with a goal and put in a plan to actually do it is delaying gratification. If you want to win a football competition, you've got to put in the hard yards, all the training and all the different games that you have to have. Then you've got to come out on top. Or if you climb a mountain, that takes a lot of effort. But gosh, when you get to the top and you see that view, you go, wow, that is worth it. So delay gratification and reach for those big goals as much as you can to keep yourself away from addictions.
And you and I talked about process addiction a little bit in the podcast when you were on. I just didn't know it was called process addiction at the time. So we talked about gaming addiction.
Yeah.
Just a very real thing, especially among young men at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Video game addiction. It's in that same group as well. It seems like, yes, it is.
It definitely is. And internet disorder, social media, all of these things can become addictions because it releases dopamine in our brain. And dopamine is a wonderful brain chemical. It feels good. But the thing is, if we get too much of it, all right, we're just going to keep wanting it, and wanting it, which is why it's a good idea for everybody to do without their screens, their smartphones, their computers for 1 day a week, all right? And just get out into nature and go for a walk because it clears your head of all that addictive dopamine and it puts you back in control. It makes you boss in your own brain.
You are asking hard things, sir. That's
I am asking hard things.
One day without my screens. I live I'm a computer worker and a YouTuber. I live in a world surrounded by screens.
Yeah, then Brent, even if it's just for a few hours that you get out to the beach or the forest, those few hours will clear your mind because this is how the brain works. The brain loves dopamine, but we can get too much of it. And when you get that feeling that you're out of control and you just open your computer lid automatically before you even think that I wanted to do something, you sort of got to go, wait a minute, am I boss in my brain or is that screen boss of me? Make sure you're the boss.
Sarah's pointing out we actually sell a t-shirt that says do hard things based on a YouTube video that I did a couple weeks ago.
Fantastic.
3-minute YouTube video, guys. And you guys, it's totally outside my realm of norm videos. So if you missed that video, be sure to check that one out. It's 3 minutes of your life. Do hard things. We have an entire shirt themed with it because of it. But we are talking about some really deep and difficult things here, guys. So, mid-show break, it's time for the bat dance. All right, we have the bat dance out of the way. Got to break it up. It gets a little difficult. You know, it's a little pretty rough topics, right? We're hitting close to home for some people. Whether anybody wants to say it out loud or not, I will be the first one to say it out loud. We are hitting close home on some very difficult topics for a lot of people. And I am greatly appreciative that, Dr. Heim, you're taking the time. So let's get into the next question because I don't want to waste your time. Let's see if I can get it show up. Show up. This is what happens when I don't let my wife do things and I click on things. All right. Our next question is, can people experience PTSD outside of the military? That's something that we are used to hearing about anymore. And thank God that conversation is happening. For a long time, PTSD was not something that was seen. And I know you work closely with the military in that regard. But are there other things besides that can cause PTSD and people just don't know that they're experiencing that?
So the short answer is yes. And I want to let you know, Brent, that in our country, we've just started a royal commission into the suicides of people who went over to Afghanistan. We used to talk about the 41 Australians that lost their lives in Afghanistan. But what we've only just started to talk about is the more than 30 times that number that have lost their lives because of suicide. So yeah, and that's a very big percentage, that for every person that lost their lives on the battlefield, 30 have taken their own lives since coming home. So because of this, PTSD is actually linked to military experiences. But anything that causes big trauma can cause PTSD. And for females in particular, the big trauma, unfortunately, I need to say, is childhood sexual abuse. And the thing is that men too, I know a lot of men that have suffered sexual abuse as a child, and it's a horrible indictment on our society that it has taken us so long to recognize the problem and to start doing something about the problem. And look, when I started working in the hospital system, I was shocked because I worked for a consultant psychiatrist that said to me, Christian, our work in the hospital system would plummet if society could get on top of two things. One was drugs, and the second was adults having sex with children. And I was shocked when I heard that, but my years of experience in psychiatry has made that awful truth also real to me. So anything that causes a large trauma can be something that leads to PTSD. But I've got to say, Brent, that the rule for human beings is actually resilience. So most people who go to the military do not get PTSD. Most people who even suffer sexual abuse as a child do not get PTSD. Now, this does not mean that there's something wrong with the people who do get PTSD, but we all have this mix of things that happen to us that are bad and good things that happen to us that keep us protected. And guess what? There's a whole book written on it. It's by psychiatrist William Perry. It's called Born for Love. And he did experiments to show that a loving family protects all children from the ravages of trauma, any kind of trauma. And in my psychiatric practice, I have found this to be true, that it's not just the bad thing that happens, but how much of the good thing did you have going on in your life, particularly when you were very young, when you were 4 years old, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Those years of life are very, very important. So again, to you and Oliver, I say we've got to keep these relationships going. We've got to keep people staying in love. We've got to keep people in families, and we've got to spread the love with each other to say, hey, I'm just another human being trying to get through this life, and let's see if we can help each other along the way. And it's that sort of protection that will keep us all from experiencing PTSD.
Now, guys, we are unpacking a whole lot tonight. We're covering a lot of very deep subjects and a lot of very difficult subjects. And Dr. Heim, I'm so grateful for you taking the time to do this with us. Guys, we're not done yet, but I want you to right now, okay? If you've stuck with us this long, I want you to stop right now. I do a question on the show almost every show, guys. And this one's the important one, okay? Who could you share this video with? Don't tell us. Don't put it in the comments. Normally, I have you guys put the answer in the chat. I don't want to do that. What I want you to do is I want you to take 10 seconds here. I want you to think, who do you know in your life who is struggling with this time right now in our history? Who do you know who is struggling on difficulties, whether it's abuses in the past or even difficulties right now? They've lost jobs. They've lost incomes. The world has changed drastically in the last year and a half or 2 years, and it's continuing to change. Share this video with them, guys. Share Dr. Heim's channel with them, but share this video with them. Let them know they are not alone. They are loved. They are cared for. And there are people out there who want to encourage them. They want to support them. And they want to help them. Guys, this is such an incredibly important thing right now. There is so much going on in our world. Now, we are not too late. I've got another question on the wheel. If you still have questions, guys, I want to make sure that we answer your questions. That's what tonight is about. So put a QQ on your questions in the chat. If you have a question, Dr. Heim, we're going to dig into this last one. I could spin the wheel, but I think that's kind of anticlimactic at the moment. But hey, we'll do it just for fun because it's kind of cool. Let's talk about anxiety. Because right now, anxiety seems to be at an all-time high. As I just said, there's a lot of people who have lost their jobs. There's a lot of people who are uncertain about their futures as governments make big choices about what requirements are where and passports, and people are without work, without income. And I know for men, loss of income and loss of job is particularly a very taxing thing for us. Would you share with us a little bit about how to deal with anxiety in a healthy way?
Yeah, I will, Brent. And first of all, I've got to say that during this COVID time, because of all the different pressures and all the different messages that we're getting from media and society, it's like we're all carrying an extra 20 pounds of anxiety. But here's a really interesting thing, because even if we all need to carry around an extra 20 pounds of anxiety, we human beings are very resilient. We actually get used to carrying around an extra 20 pounds. So what the studies are showing is that in 2020, at the start of the pandemic, anxiety and depression rates went up pretty dramatically. But by the end of last year, they had leveled off to almost pre-pandemic levels. And that's actually important to talk about, because it shows that we humans are actually equipped to deal with anxiety. We are actually dealing with this pandemic. We haven't all given up, right? What happens, however, is we have a social media system that feeds on anxiety, that likes to present things as though they are problems all the time. There are actually a lot of very good things going on in the world that you won't hear about, because it doesn't shock people, so they don't go onto the social media. So let's take this new variant of COVID that we have at the moment, the Omicron variant. It's like we've got a whole lot of anxiety about it before we understand that it could just be a mild variant. So the point that I just want to make is sometimes there's not as much to be concerned about as we think. There may, and that brings me to uncertainty, because I am going to give you a technique on how we could all handle uncertainty just a little bit better. And the thing about the way that we live life is we tend to worry about things that we can do nothing about, and tend not to do something about the things that we could do something about. So let's say people will put on a picnic and worry if it'll rain. Well, you can't do much about the weather, if it's going to rain or not. Okay. But then people will say something like, I wish I wouldn't overeat. But there's actually things that you could do about that, and they are difficult, but they tend not to do things about that. So I'm going to go to a message by an old Greek friend of mine. He's now 1,971 years old. His name is Epictetus, and he was a Stoic philosopher. And he said to approach all of life and to keep anxiety levels down, know what you can control, know what you can't control, and focus on what you can control and you can do something about. So how this works, if it's going to rain, take an umbrella, because you can do something about that. You can't stop the rain. Okay. So if you're worried about not getting around to cleaning out the basement, you can actually do something about that. Okay. Whereas the Omicron variant, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, what can you personally do about it? Because it's here. So if we're able to change what we can change and accept what we can't change, anxiety levels actually start to come down, because we feel good being able to do what we can do. The difficulty is being able to accept something when we can't do anything about it. So that, in a little nutshell, Brent, is what I want to share about that.
I am a constant worrier. I definitely, that is, my aunt drew me, the praying hands years ago. She was a very talented artist, and she wrote, I think that she called it a prayer, but it's basically is what you said, give me the peace to accept things I can't change. And I'm such I worry about everything. And so it's really hard for me to keep it in perspective sometimes, how much I worry about things I absolutely have no control over at all.
Yeah, so I'll actually quote that prayer by Professor Niebuhr, which is called the Serenity Prayer, which basically says, give me the serenity to accept the things that I can't change, and the courage to change the things that I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that Serenity Prayer says exactly the same thing as what Epictetus said all those years ago about what can you change, what can't you change, focus on what you can change.
Well said.
So that's really good that you brought that up, Brent. That's really, really important. Yeah.
Now, guys, it is time. So if you want that mouse pad, I want you to throw mouse pad, #MousePad in the chat box, because it is time to give away more free stuff, because I just like to give away free stuff because I love you guys. So if you want it, mouse pad is the hashtag. Sarah, are we ready? Congratulations, Shirley. You have a Manly Monday mouse pad coming your way. I will get that out to you shortly. If you won last week, please bear with me. Those books are on the way. Stephen Crane sent me the books, but he sent them to my house. So I've got to wait for him to get here before I can send those out to our winners. But we do have that list. But we will get this stuff out lickety split. I have lots of time tomorrow to work on that kind of stuff. So congratulations to Shirley, and congratulations to Oliver on winning the book. And like I say, you can let me know what that is. Now, Dr. Heim, as we wrap up this time together, is there anything you especially want to share with our viewers tonight?
I'm going to share just one message, Brent, that the answer to everything is actually love, caring, and compassion. However you express it, if you express it with somebody special, if you express it with family, if you express it with friends, work colleagues, or even just a smile to strangers, that's the kind of thing that will raise our good feel-good brain chemicals, our dopamine, our oxytocin, our serotonin, and our beta endorphins, so that we can walk through this crazy thing called life and feel good about doing it together. Because the research is starting to show it, Brent, that this is the most protective thing that we need. And that's why I encourage people to put down their smartphones occasionally, look each other in the eye and say, how you doing, brother? Let's keep going.
Guys, I don't know that I can say any better than that. So, Dr. Heim, thank you for taking the time with us tonight. Guys, as always, be better tomorrow because of what you do today, and we'll see you on the next one.